Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the NHL 94 podcast. I'm Len the Legend, and today we're going to be diving deep into creating lines for the SNES. And I can't do this by myself. Obviously, I'm just a jabroni. I have no skill in this, no knowledge, no anything to do with this. So I happen to bring in two very accomplished people, the professor and Bob Kadelsky. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing
Living
good.
the
Thanks,
dream.
Len.
I appreciate you guys taking the time, for not just creating this information, but also coming on the show to dive deep into this. Because, we'll be doing today the Norris Division, and there are 6 teams we have to deal with. And we'll be doing Chicago, Dallas, Detroit, St. Louis, Tampa, and Toronto. But before we get into this, I just want to hear just a quick overview of maybe you could give one sentence or a comment or something about this division that stands out. I'll start with you, Professor, if you have anything you want to add to this, or just, we'll just dive into it or keep going.
Well, it's got a couple real doozy of teams. Like Chicago and Detroit are often ones that get picked in Classic because they do have very strong teams. And then there's ones that are kind of in the mushy middle, where if the going gets rough, you'll pluck a couple of these out, and then Tampa's the lone one that I don't think anybody likes. Although I'd say that that's probably one of the better of the expansion-y teams. We can talk a little bit about that, but there's a lot of variety in this division.
Bob, your thoughts about this division? I want to hear if it's similar or different.
Yeah, I guess one thing that stands out to me is sort of offensive skill. So it's not like a lot of huge teams, but Chicago, Detroit, Dallas are all kind of smaller forwards that are faster and skilled. And even like Tampa, out of all the expansion teams, their forwards are kind of slight and skilled. So it's kind of interesting in that sense. But I think the Norris Division used to be called the Chuck Norris Division, right? In the 80s or 90s, because of all the fighting, like big tough teams. I guess like St. Louis, Toronto, Chicago, Detroit, you had some real fighters. So kind of a paradox, I guess.
They were the redheaded stepchild of the Campbell division. Are they Campbell? I think they were. Well, either division, whatever it was, conference it was, because it's always the Smythe that ran away with it. The Smythe division in the 80s and very, very beginning, like the first year of the 90s, they sent a team to the Stanley Cup Finals for 7 consecutive years, I believe it was. So the Norris never even stood a chance. It was always a Smythe division all the way. But with that being said, I think it's let's dive deep into Chicago number 1. And you know what? We'll start with you, Bob. I want to hear how you would set up the lines here on the SNES.
Yeah, sure. So Chicago is, as I said, super skilled team. They have stars at every position, forward, defense, and goal with Belfour, if that matters, in SNES. But up front, maybe I like to mix it up a little bit, but I like to go with Stevie Larmer at center, actually. Just a little bit more size and defensive ability. And for whatever reason, I like having that skilled right shot guy on the left side on his off wing. So I like to put Roenick on that side, and then Rutu on the other wing there. Defense is easy. Smith is a beast for SNES, like definitely probably top 10 defenseman. Chelios is up there too. Doesn't quite have the size maybe some guys would want, but super skilled all around. You got Belfour net if that matters. But Chicago is one of those teams that's definitely up there. They're kind of polarizing a little bit because they're known for being, maybe super powered in Sega, from what I understand. In Super Nintendo, they're still very good, and I think maybe we underrate them a little bit, actually, based on what Professor's doing with them in Classic League, because he's killing it. But they're definitely an excellent team. And if you can scroll down just a bit there,
You got it.
I think we said for their pros, as I mentioned, JR is elite. They have the high end D, and I think they're great at home based on the ratings. And then on the cons, well, if you had to find some cons, it's kind of hard, but you might like a little bit more size up front and lacking depth. I mean, I don't know. They don't have a lot of D-men that could come in. Forwards, maybe Joe Murphy. But does that really matter? I mean, we play with no line changes, so it doesn't really matter.
Professor, I want to
Good.
hear your thoughts. Your lineup is slightly different the way you're looking, the way you're building it. So I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so like Bob said, like this is actually the first time I've gotten to play with Chicago for an extended period of time, and I'm not really a huge fan of Chicago, and I don't actually know why they're good because, like Bob said, they're small, but yet for some reason JR can take a hit. And I don't know why. And I think it might be that if you're drifting away from the hitter, then he's able to more absorb a check. And with the high agility, he accelerates faster, right? Like he's able to make the turn and absorb the hit a little bit better. But with that 4 weight, I don't know why he's that durable of a player, honestly. And so like I watched like the Angler play with Chicago, and he does a number on anybody with them. And I never, and when I played him when he's playing with Chicago, like I never understood why I'm trying to hit the guy and I can't hit him. And now I don't know, like, but that phenomenon continues now that like I get to play with them. And so that's why I don't know, even though Larmer is bigger, and I think Bob and I have the same strategy, like we like size at center because it's so important for the center to play good defense, at least in kind of the ways that I don't know, I feel like we play that like it makes sense for Larmer to be at center just because he's so much bigger. But again, for some reason, JR, like defying orthodoxy, for some reason is able to feel like a big guy even though he's little. And so because with all of that additional speed and agility, I feel like he's better for me at center because he can get back and play D. And still, even like with the 2 checking, or I think he's 2 checking. I'm not. Yeah, like he still hits. And so like I don't know how the numbers don't actually translate into how he plays, but he plays bigger than what he actually presents, like in the code. So I keep him in the middle. My best player should be at center because he has to do all sorts of things. So then, so I keep Larmer in the left, and Bob and I both like Rutu in the right wing. I don't know. I there's a lot of people that like to have a right shot on the right wing, but I like that feeling of having an off wing on one of the guys. And so yeah, that's why I like that. But when JR goes down, I put Rutu in the center just because, again, the size, because he's an 8 and pretty consistent. So yeah, the centers are great. And like Bob said, like Smith is a beast and Chelios ain't half bad. And the thing about the goalies that I'm starting to see is that they're really, I don't know, and this might be very controversial, but with the high end goalies, like the really high end goalies, like the Belfour, the Raw, and maybe even the Fuhr, I feel like they get over the AI goalie is just a smidge better than the like the other guys. I don't know. I may be psychological, but I feel when I play with Chicago and I have Belfour in net that like I tend to let the AI take a lot of the shots. I don't know. I'm still playing around with that, but yeah, like Bob said though, like with the pros and cons, it's very true in terms of the lacking the size. Like Bob, we played the other day, and he had Pittsburgh. And if you look at the splits in terms of the hits, like Bob hits really, he hits a lot, but it was really evident just how the size did matter when it came to playing a really big team. Like it was very frustrating. So you need to be able to move into deke and play agile when you've got a team like Chicago and you're facing off against a stud big team.
Yeah, for
Bob,
sure.
do you want to add
And
anything to that?
I think what you're saying about Roenick being able to hit probably has to do with his skating ability, right? Because he
Yeah,
can get the
yeah,
momentum going.
for
I
sure.
think we've seen that definitely matters, even if they're smaller guys. And then the stick handling probably helps him absorb some of those hits as well, along with the
Maybe.
agility. But that's pretty huge what you're saying about goalies. You're saying goalies do matter because that's a big
I don't.
change
Well,
for you.
I know I'm notorious for not giving a damn about the goalies, but because I play with Montreal in another league, and I don't know. I think they make one or two more saves than other goalies, and this is purely just, this might be bias, like confirmation bias that I see, but that's kind of how I feel. Anyway, I might change my tune later, but right now I'm definitely seeing, and it could be like, if you look at Belfour's speed and and his agility, like they can get across the crease, I think, a smidge faster than some of the goalies that don't have that kind of, like, some of those numbers. Anyway, we'll, that's how I'm feeling right now, but that might change.
In terms of the home ice and road ice disadvantage, is there any way you play them differently just because they have a very high home ice advantage and pretty average road disadvantage?
It doesn't matter to me, really. Like, I don't deal with, when we get to Toronto, though, that's a different story, but I don't deal with really with the home. Like, when you're calling games like at King, that doesn't really factor in for me. I don't know if it does for you, Bob.
No, I mean, I want the home team regardless, I think. But I guess just knowing that Chicago is kind of this highly rated team, and they have that home advantage rated as high, just psychologically, maybe gives you a little boost. Like, yeah, I got Chicago at home, and you got their organ music blasting. It's
right.
Maybe a little boost there. But yeah, good team. Just below that tier of probably Boston and Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
You guys listed as tier 2 out of 7. So let's mosey on over to Dallas. And Professor, you could start off with this tier 5/tier 6 team. So go ahead with your lines.
Yeah. So I like Modano. Modano, to me, is one of the most underrated players. When we do the draft league, he often drops. He's either like a very low first round pick or somewhere in the second round. But to me, he's a stud because his size, like, he's a 7 weight, which is pretty solid, and then the 5 skating across the board. So he's got both size and speed, and in a league like the draft league, that is at a premium. So and the checking, it might be low, but because he's fast and he is pretty big, he still throws his weight around. So anyway, because he's strong, because he's fast, I like him at center again, just because of the need to play D. I have Gagne playing on the left wing, and he's just okay. And the right wing, I think Russ is the default right winger, and he's fast, but he's highly inconsistent. I'm sure Bob will mention this too. Like, because his stick handling is at a 3, like, he'll bobble the odd pass when he's cold. So he's like, if you need to move the puck around, you can't count on him. And then because the depth is pretty poor on this team, like after the 3 of them, like, you might have Dahlin. That's why I have Ulf. Like, if you've got to play him, then you'll have to play him. But he's not that great. He's just sort of like a middle of the road kind of guy. So it's high risk, high reward when you have Russ there, and Tenorti and Shoden playing D. They're just, I don't know, like, they're not great at all. This is the huge weakness of Dallas, is you've got Modano, who can carry you. Like Russ, if he's on, if you've got the 2 of them working, then you've got a pretty good chance. But that D is just terrible. So this is a shootout team. Like, you might win 9-7. It's one of these kinds of games if you got to pick Dallas.
And Bob, over to you.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement. Not my style of team. I like more size. Like Modano, you have to put him at center just because he's so much better than the other forward options for sure. He's 7 weight, which to me, pretty average. Like, I actually like 8 or 9 as a minimum, but this team is just super frustrating. Like, the shot accuracy, the stick handling, and the shot accuracy with Courtnall in particular. I've used Dallas for some some seasons, mini seasons, whatever before, and I get so frustrated because they have the skating, right? And Modano is so good, but I just miss the net so much. I get super frustrated. The defense is bad, but one thing that's kind of interesting, Tenorti might be a little bit underrated. Like he's got size, and actually his shot, you see it's in the green there. It's a 4-3 shot for a defenseman. That's actually one of the best shots. The accuracy is usually quite low in D-men, so to have a 3 along with the 4 shot power, it's actually decent. So not a bad player, and he's got the 4 checking as well. So just probably the most frustrating team for me. Maybe my bottom team other than the expansion teams. But they can be fun, like when they're actually hitting the net, because they've got the speed and skill. So like Prof said, it's a shootout.
Yeah, but like the D, even though Tenorti has those good stats there, none of them have a stick handling above 3. And so you like 4 is really the minimum in order to have somewhat like mostly consistent receiving of passes. So none of those D men you can like have an outlet pass to. Like if you're deep in the offensive zone and you just need like an outlet just to like get out of the boards, like they're gonna bobble that pass. The other team's gonna take it for a breakaway. Like this is like to have D that terrible, like when you can't count on any of them to take a pass, like it's a gong show. Like that's what I'm saying. Like these are shootout. This is a shootout team because you can't count. And the goalies, I mean, if we're going to talk about goalies, like no, they're like, I don't even know what is Wakalak actually slightly better or not really? Like they're both in the 40s, right? Overall, or something along those lines, right? I don't know. They're both terrible.
Yeah, they look
really
pretty.
matters,
They look pretty even, but like you said, doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just chaos at both ends of the ice, I guess. With Dallas, like you're gonna have breakaways and odd man chances, both ends of the ice.
Yeah.
So not my style, not my team,
No.
but they can be fun.
Is there any value to having a slightly heavier goalie? I'm looking at Wakalak being 6 as opposed to Casey being a 2. So does the 6 carry any value? Does it like ramming the crease and all that? I know in Genesis it's a big thing. In the SNES, is it really a big thing?
I think if anything, lighter might be a little bit quicker. I think Dangler was talking about that when you had him on. The lighter goalies might be a little bit quicker moving side to side. Heavier, maybe they stand their ground a bit, but like the ram the net goal isn't such a thing in SNES.
Got it. All right. We're done with Dallas. What an interesting team, because in Genesis they are much better. They're thought of to be a decent team. But Detroit, I want to hear your thoughts. We'll start off with Bob and see. I want to hear how you do the lineup here.
All right. Well, I got Stevie Y at center. Probably one of my favorite NHL players all time. And then the wings, you got more skill with Cicerelli and Fedorov. Like pretty easy decision for the starting lineup here for Detroit. And I've got them on their off wing. So Cicerelli with right-hand shot, I got him on the left side, and Fedorov on the right. And I learned that from Professor, who actually has a different lineup here. But I think that's the lineup he used at the start of the pandemic in that classic finals versus Coke. He had both wingers on the off wing, and I thought that's kind of weird because I always liked, right shots on the right side and vice versa. And so I gave it a shot, and I never went back. Like I actually love guys on their off wing. So thanks to Professor for that. But you also have a bit of depth there too. Yzerman is very capable. Like if you're in a draft league and you end up with him as your third forward starter, it's not that bad. He's actually like decent across the board with 4s mostly there. And then you have some options, like if you need to bring in the heavyweight, you have Bob Probert there, who actually has a decent shot and obviously the size and agility. So it's kind of an intriguing option there if he can handle the puck. And then you have a bunch of guys that could be good, like Drake, and I think guys like Primo and Shepard. If you're getting really deep in the lineup, you might want to try them, but you probably don't need to. I mean, the starting three are so good. Like probably skill wise, the best starting three forwards in the game. If you're not looking for the real heavies. Then on defense, Coffee, I guess flip him over to the left side. So he's on the left stick on the left side. I like that for the D-man anyways. I like my more skilled guy there, and then Jason playing his off wing. Jason's fully capable. They've got some depth there as well with Lidstrom, Konstantinov, Racine. They're all like decent options to come in a pinch. But yeah, Coffee probably like top 5 D-man in the game. So more skill from the back end. You can use him as like a rover, and he still has the size as well. So awesome team, and not many weaknesses other than maybe the size up front. And that's about it. Just a great team. Over to Prof.
I didn't realize like that was so long ago. That was my first jaunt like into the online community during the pandemic and that classic. And I happened to get Detroit because I think I was a newbie, and so I was able to pick high. If I had Yzerman in the beginning at center, now I think more about having Fedorov, because again, Fedorov is bigger and hits harder. So I feel like he's more reliable as a defender. Like he feels dense, like when you play with him, and he hits, and he's pretty consistent in terms of hitting even the bigger guys. So that's where I think I've evolved to kind of just stick him in the middle. And then put Yzerman on the but they're both right-hand shots, so somebody's got to be on the off wing. And yeah, just a side note, like I like guys on the off wing because you just have more deking options, right, Bob? Like I feel like you have more moves that are at your disposal when you have the off wing shot. So that's probably like I don't know, I'd be curious to hear like folks that are really left side, left shot, like what the rationale for that might be. But yeah, the off wing, maybe it just feels also comfortable like to have left on left. But yeah, so center, having Fedorov in the middle, and Yzerman, I don't know, like he's super skilled. Like you can see all the 4s, 5s, and 6s, but like I feel like he's, I don't know, what to me, like one of the more overrated guys, because he's like a 90 something, but because he's on the smaller end and he doesn't hit, like when you have to pick him in a draft league, let's say, he's not in like my top like group of people to choose from, maybe just because of the nature of the league. Like, but if you do need to pick a team, like you're not going to find, like Bob said, like a better trio to start up front, and I'll take Yzerman because he skates like a beast. Like if you're playing a team that's not as huge, then you can meander your way through with a guy like, because that 6 agility, like he'll stop on a dime and he'll turn. One of my favorite matchups for some reason, and I don't know if it's just again psychological, but I picked Detroit LA for matchups, like for King, because they're so different. Like LA is just this behemoth of a team, and I feel like either way you go, you can either try to pummel your way through a team if you're LA, or because LA is not as quick, you have that huge skating advantage because you've got such great skaters on this team. Coffee, Chase on, pretty standard there. Anybody other than those top 2 are just, they're a tier below those guys. So other than the size, and like Cicerelli, again, a lot of guys love him, and for some reason, again, he's like the poor man's JR. I think that he's again bigger than what his numbers seem, and it's a really solid team, definitely. I don't know if he's in the I don't know if Detroit's on the second tier. Is that what's on the cheat
Yeah.
sheet, Bob? Yeah.
I think the first tier is 2 teams. It's Boston and Pittsburgh.
Oh, I see. Yeah. But I'd say like they're, if you had to build a bigger tier, like tier 1, like this would be like a top 4, top 5 team for sure.
And the goalies, your Chevrolet's and nothing else. Really, Riando's not even an option. Like,
No,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Any last words before we chime into St. Louis? I want to hear any last comments before we leave Detroit, because it seems like an interesting team.
Yeah, well, again, like they'll skate circles around you, or you with them. So yeah, I think Bob, you're never out of a game. Yeah, you can score. Yeah,
that's it. Like of the skilled teams, they're probably the best. Where you get into trouble is against like Boston, Pittsburgh, and maybe LA or New York. But like those are even matchups for sure, because Detroit's probably got a bit of a skating and skill advantage there. So good matchups.
Yeah.
Tier 5 St. Louis. I'm looking to hear this one. Professor, you could lead off on how you'd build this line.
Yeah, I have a soft spot because this was the team that I had to win King. I had Shanny do a little crease cut to win it in OT. So I typically hate St. Louis until that moment in my life, and now they're not half bad. So I have Shanny again in the middle because, again, he's the biggest guy. And when he's on, because when a guy is glitch fast, like for some reason their skating they're skating like Bondra, right? Like, I don't know. It just happens once in a while. So what I like to do sometimes is I like to just hope for the best and just and have Shanny in the middle. And if he's super sluggish, then I'll switch him. But as a first option, if Shanahan can skate, then he's gonna ram like anybody and everybody, and it's gonna be his night. I'll have Hull in the off wing, and then Shanny on the other, or Janny on the other side. Hull, I think everybody knows, like, his shots wild. And again, big team. I think Janny's also not half bad, like as a 7 weight. So you've got a good amount of size up front. The D is, hit or miss. You've got Jeff Brown, who's not half bad. He's probably on a, he's a very solid guy. Skates all right. I think his stick handling is a 4. So he's, dependable if you need to play offense with him and kind of kick it out and then, drive the lane with him. Butcher is he's just a pulse there, a big guy. So like whatever, but he's not going to do anything for you other than lay out somebody. Yeah. And then Cujo's the only goalie. So other than that, there's nobody. So is the E-Bug. I don't know who the E-Bug would be playing that one as a backup. So yeah, they're big team. They shoot okay, but yeah, they're pretty sluggish otherwise. So you're kind of hoping that, you pass well and you're just kind of absorbing some hits because that's the only way you're going to make it to the net.
Yeah. So I'm not good with St. Louis, so I would listen to Prof on this one. And I guess I need to evolve because I still have Hull at center, but I saw Prof win King of 94 with Shanahan at center, and probably makes sense. I mean, he's got the shot accuracy, he's got the size. So I'm definitely trying that next time I have St. Louis. But yeah, don't love this team, even though they have size. I just find them slow. Maybe it's Hull missing the net one too many times that has frustrated me over the years as well. But yeah, Hull and Shanahan, it's an interesting pair. I need to give St. Louis another shake, maybe. Janny, very vanilla player. He's not the fastest guy. He's just kind of there. But I mean, he's not gonna hurt you because he's got decent stick handling and all that stuff across the board. And a lot of guys like to put in Emerson for a little bit of speed because he's a smaller guy who skates decent, I guess. You know, you can see if he's hot, you know, throw him in there. On defense, yeah, Butcher's just there, and Brown is a decent player again with a huge shot. And I saw him just shoot out of a cannon at King of 94 when Prof tied that game to go to OT.
That was a crazy play, man. That was a crazy play.
I think it was Lindros that he just blew up, and he got like a massive speed burst from one end of the ice to the other. That was insane. It's too bad he doesn't play like that all the time. And then yeah, goaltending. I guess you're going with Joseph because I checked actually. Hebert is in the Sega version, I think, but
Yes, he is.
He's not there in Super Nintendo. They got it right, and he's only on Anaheim. So you got the only option there, and you hope he doesn't get injured.
I got a question for you, Bob. You mentioned sometimes you look in case he's hot. You might consider bringing in Emerson if you need a light guy. If you decide to do that, who would you take out in your lineup to put in Emerson?
Oh, Janny. Yeah, Janny for sure. I mean, unless something is like extremely wrong with Shanahan or Hall, or if you get an injury, obviously you're gonna probably bring in Emerson. Kevin Miller is kind of intriguing there, but I don't know. I don't have too much experience using those guys.
I've seen Coke play with Bob Basson. Just gotta think because he skates pretty okay, but he's a tiny guy. So that's another option that could be at play.
I think he's a big Gens guy.
Is he? Yeah.
I think Basson's good in Genesis.
He is. He's a decent option. But if you look at the two between Emerson and Basson, aside from one being right, one being left-handed, Emerson seems to have him beat just about everywhere else except for checking. Right? So like why would anyone consider using Basson unless you have to get the left-handed shot out there?
It depends, you know, like from the day-to-day, game-to-game, like for instance, I switched like at the King that game. I think I had Hull in at the center, but then he was cold, but then Shanahan was hot. So then that's why I had them switch. And then after I was like, oh, I don't know why I didn't even think of that in the beginning, just because. Well, I think usually the my thinking is like my best player is my center, but if Shanahan is fast, then he's probably the best player. Just again because of that's just like that 10 size is huge. Yeah, but I mean, there's days where like multiple of those guys are cold, and then you got to call up Emerson and or Basson, or if Emerson's not doing it that day, like you're gonna have to keep pulling out like different guys, and Basson's like the second on the list, right? I would, so it's not unusual to have him play, but I mean, yeah, like it's like because the team is so slow, it feels like you can't really do anything, and so when people are skating circles around you, you kind of have to pull up some of these faster guys because it's like, yeah, if you're playing, I don't know, St. Louis with like Vancouver or something, there it's tough slogging.
Yeah, I feel like Shanahan is so intriguing there, but then that 3-3 skating is just rough. Like this team, if you could just give like one extra attribute to this team, I feel like they'd go from like mediocre to like very good. Like give Shanahan an extra agility or speed, or give Hull a better shot accuracy. It's just kind of frustrating. They're just kind of mediocre, right in that middle pack with like Philly.
Bob, you got to play more of them. It looks like you got to put Shanahan in the middle and just try them out and see how that works for you.
I will
shake it up. Yeah. All right, let's go to Tampa. And Bob, you can lead us off with this expansion team, tier 7 out of 7. Oof, not looking good.
Yeah. Tough to say too much about Tampa because I don't use them so much, but just looking at the stats for an expansion team, I guess pro for this team is they do have some skill up front. Like they actually have 2 forwards with shot accuracy of 5, which is actually great. Brian Bradley, I think he had like a 40 goal, 80-point season or something that year for the expansion Lightning, right? So he's not a bad player. Super small, which is not ideal, but I mean, you take what you can get with the expansion teams. So Kontos got there on the right side, so he's off wing. And then the third winger, I mean, I just have Anderson. I think, what's his name? Mikhail Anderson, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's a starter in the game, so I just left him there because I feel like maybe that gives him a boost. But like looking at the ratings, I don't know that he should be. So maybe you want to try a few guys there like Bureau or DeMaio or Cole. I have no idea. Like just see whoever's skating. And then I guess on defense, not too bad. Bob Beers is a decent guy. Like I think if we were in a draft league, and he was my worst skater, okay, that's maybe livable. And then the other guy there is Hammerlick, who is just kind of there. And then Riki maybe is good. Like he's got the 11 weight if you want to put in just sort of a guy that has some size to take up some space. Maybe give Riki a try. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here. Who's Tampa's goalie? Wendell Young. Okay, I don't know.
Patrick
Maybe
Blonsky and
he's-
JC Bergeron.
Yeah, for some reason I had Pupa in my mind, but I guess apparently he's Toronto's backup, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's Tampa. So, decent shooting for an expansion team is what I said, but they're not overly fast and they're quite small, especially up front.
Yeah, I think the hardest part of any of the expansion teams is you can't pass with them. Like they'll bobble every pass. So with the stick handling being threes across the board for most of the guys, it's like you're gonna just rely on mainly like really really short passes and just kind of dangling around guys. Like that's the only way that you can really play and not throw your controller at the TV. Like it's a tough game when you play with them. I put Bureau instead of Anderson only just because of the size, and the skating is a little bit more consistent. Like it's a 3-3 on the agility and the speed. So I would like, and with the 7 weight, like I would give the edge to Bureau. But again, like it's such a crapshoot. Like he might just be terrible, and then you just bring in Anderson after that. Like that's the tiebreaker for me, was just the fact that he was a little bit bigger. But yeah, like Roman Hammerlick and Bob Beers, like whatever. like they're just like it's not fun. Like this team is not fun. But I mean, like if given Florida, Ottawa, Tampa, or whatever, like I would probably pick Tampa like over those guys. Just because because Bradley's not half bad, even though he's super small. But yeah, I mean it's avoid at all costs, but you'll take it if you're playing like week on week, and you have to pick one or the other, gun to your head.
Yeah, it's funny. The 3-3 skating starts to look good on an expansion team. You have to put the expansion goggles on sometimes when you're looking at the lineups here. But that's a good point, like about the expansion teams, how you can't do a lot of passing, right? So maybe that makes sense to, take Tampa if you have an expansion matchup, because you can kind of just hold on to it with a guy like Bradley for sure and try and dangle in there. The only expansion team that I would absolutely take over Tampa is Anaheim, maybe Ottawa as well, just because I played with them a lot. But Anaheim, I quite like, actually, with Kasatonov.
Actually, he's probably the best player on an expansion team. Kasatonov.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Bob, I think you're a little bit biased to Ottawa because Bob Kudelski's on the team too, and so
I am. Yeah. Guilty as charged.
So Tampa,
when Bob plays with Ottawa, it's like you can't actually take him lightly on that one, because It's like he knows them so intimately, you know.
That's his team.
Yeah,
It means something to me. It means
That's right.
something.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose. I don't want to see my team lose. See enough of that in real life.
I love it. All right, we'll go to the last team in the Norris Division, and Professor, you can lead off. We'll do Toronto at tier 4/5 out of 7. So yeah, build this team for us.
Yeah, I picked this team once for Classic, and I remember Dangler was like, "You picked Toronto or something along this." He was like super surprised. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll just go with it." It was a terrible mistake. I didn't do very well. I think I got swept in the playoffs. It's just a homer bias of it that I want them to do. I want them to be good. Gilmore is a great skater with that 5 agility. And he's pretty solid all the way around. So again, like I would probably lean towards him being there. I know Andrechuk is a starter and he's huge, but I find him wildly inconsistent. So, again, it's the like I might play him to start and just kind of hope and see how it goes for the first couple minutes. Like if he can take a pass, which he is not very good at with that 3 stick handling. But if he can take a pass and he's actually half decently quick for whatever reason, then he's a beast. But most of the time, I'm not a huge fan of him. I like to bring Wendell Clark off the bench and put him in the right wing because again, he's pretty big. That 3-3 skating can be a little deceiving. Again, he could be quick at times, but he could also be pretty sluggish there. Hits really well, so he's a good option playing defense. And then Glenn Anderson is again probably one of the more underrated players. I don't know. I find in the game. 7, I know Bob, you like 8 and 9s, but 7's my minimum. I find like it's not bad in terms of the size. You'll be able to take more hits than the I just find that to me is the bar. So it's not bad. And that 4-4 skating is pretty good too. Like for me, shot accuracy is not super important to me, but the shot power is actually not bad in terms of like that ought to be at a 4. So I find that sometimes when you're deking with a backhand and it's a 3 shot, like sometimes you skate, like you block your own shot. Like, I don't know if you've ever done that, right? Like it's wildly stupid, but like it happens. But then like with defense, I really like Dave Ellett. Like he is like an elite defenseman in my mind. He's huge with the 9 weight and the 4-4 skating. That 5 shot power is a doozy. Like, yes, it's the accuracy is a 1, but again, like I'm looking like but I'm not taking slap shots with the guy, but if because of that speed and the size, like I like to kick it out to him, like at the blue line and then catch people off guard and try to drive in. And that 5 shot, it goes a long way in terms of finishing, and he hits really well too. So I love Dave Ellett. And McCowan is just kind of like, he's there, he's, the size isn't bad, but again, with the 3 stick handling, he's not part of the offense. And I don't know, I maybe should be better at like knowing where my D man is, but sometimes like I'm like, oh, I'm going to kick it to Dave Ellett. And then it ends up being Jamie McCowan. And I'm like, crap. And then, and then like it's a turnover or whatever. Potvin is one of the more elite goalies, but again, I'm not going to give him credit for, the odd, the miraculous save, and he's not an Ed Belfour. But so the front 3 aren't half bad. So that's why they're in the tier 4-5 range. But the saving grace for me is Dave Ellett. Just because like your defense is pretty solid with him and he's a good offensive option. But yeah, other than that, like the thing I don't like, and I thought that they had a road disadvantage. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the part that I was like, when I ever played away with Toronto, it like I felt it. And so I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I thought that they had a road disadvantage.
Yeah, so I kind of agree. Like they're inconsistent up front. Like I like to try Clark at center and see if he's on or not. Like when he's on, he can be unreal. Like
Yeah.
because he's got that shot power, size checking. So if he's on, great. But if not, just get him out of there.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you need Gilmore as a starting forward just because he's their best forward and pretty great across the board. But other than that, like there's 5 other forwards I think that you could just basically throw in a blender. From Clark, Andreychuk, Anderson, Borshevsky, and Cullen, like they all bring something to the table, and none of them are really elite. But they can be quite good if they're on, and they can be quite bad if they're off. So like, it really comes down to personal preference, like whether you want the big guy like Andreychuk, or if you're more into like Borshevsky and Anderson. And I've seen you guys use John Cullen to great success at times too. So, you know, there's any number of ways that you could mix the forward group there. On D, I agree. Dave Ellett is awesome. He's one of my probably favorite D-men. Like I used him in my first draft league, or I guess STL 5, and probably my best STL season ever as my number 1 D-man. Like he skates well, and he basically just does everything. And I guess on the other side, McCown is just kind of there, and Rouse is kind of intriguing. Like I always have him in the back of my mind when we get in the deep rounds in the draft league, just because he's got that size, 10 weight, along with 4 defensive awareness and 4 checking. So as a defensive defenseman that can just kind of hit guys and get in the way, kind of intriguing there. So yeah, Toronto is kind of all over the map in terms of what you're going to get, and I agree on the road. They can be pretty bad at times, like bouncing passes and just being slow and missing the net. So yeah, I guess buyer beware with Toronto. You don't really know what you're going to get, but they do have lots of options, so you can juggle the lines and see what works. But unfortunately, you don't have a lot of time to do that when the games take like 10 minutes to play.
Yeah.
I like actually Gilmore on the wing, like you have there, because yeah, he's not much of a hitter. So I tend to, like, if I ever have Gilmore, you gotta just trip guys all the time, and that works to varying degrees. So yeah, I think having a big guy like you have either Clark there or Andreychuk, it's good to start with, and seeing if they're going to be okay there, and if not, yeah, it's a mess. It's not, that won't be a good game. Yeah.
Well said.
All right, guys, I think we wrapped this up. Pretty good time. We got it in under an hour, which was kind of my goal. So, gents, I want to thank you for coming on, and we'll be doing this again. Next will be Patrick Division. No, Smythe. Smythe is next. My bad. We'll do Smythe next.
All right.
So, yeah. Any last words before we sign off? Because you guys could chirp each other here, because I know you guys recently played, so maybe you guys could form some animosity against
No,
each other.
I was on a roll until I hit Bob. Like I was trying to gun for the 30 win club, but Bob put a stop to that pretty quick. So
well, we split the games. I was trying to win all 5 so I could take first place, but that didn't work somehow. Shocker. But yeah, maybe we'll see you in the classic finals. We'll have to
that'll
see
be
what
fun.
happens there.
Yeah,
we'll have it streamed here. We'll find a place to stream. I'm sure it goes on Twitch somewhere. But gents, thank you so much for coming on. We'll do Smythe next. So with that, take care, keep your controller plugged in, and your stick on the ice.